Hello everyone, welcome to Time to Awaken. This is Michael, and below you will find a link to my YouTube channel and a Rumble site where you will find the Mark of the Beast video. Alright, and then down below that you'll see an email. If you like to talk to me about it. Be civil, that's all I ask. No calling names, no being angry and mean and whatever. I have had people do that. So please be civil. All right. Today is going to be a fun one. Okay. I'm assuming that, like many of my stuff, people might just shut this one down as soon as they would see it. But I'm asking that you actually listen to it through. You might actually, even if you don't believe in what I'm about to show you, you might stop and learn something for a change, okay? It might make you, at the very least, stop and think about things, okay? This is something that most pastors probably know, but they will never, ever, ever accept it. They will never allow you to even go down this road, okay? Why? Because it pertains to science, and we have modern science to tell us what we need to know. And if the Bible disproves science, then we have to accept science over the Bible. Yeah, interesting how the church does that these days. So if the Bible says something, great, wonderful. But if science says something that refutes the Bible, then we got to accept science over the Bible, okay? We got to accept these smart men of this world over what God tells us, okay? But again, if you talk to a pastor or teacher, anybody out there, honestly, they're just going to laugh at you. I don't care. I mean, personally, this is more of a fun thing for me. And yes, I do believe that this is true because I have a lot of reasons for it to be true, and I'm gonna share all these reasons at the end of the video or through the video. Okay, just think for yourself for a change and not accept the status quo. Ask questions. Ask the right questions. Don't just accept what you're told or shown, for that matter. Okay. All right. That said, let's dig, because this is going to get a little bit dicey for most. So I'm not sure whether you even remotely believe any of the ideas I shared about the beginning of the Bible. Okay. When I first started this path, I was not open to any of it. It was entirely too radical for me. But as time went on, I started reading more from the Bible, as well as some of the apocryphal texts. And at first it felt odd. Then I started connecting to the Bible itself. And I must say that there are things that I had heard over the years that I had put on the back burner. This, and the origin of what the original sin really were. Okay? So although I do believe this is true, it isn't the most important thing in the world. And it's not. Like I said, just listen through to it. You might gain something by it. Okay? It may start you asking questions at the very least. So the church teaches one thing, but it seems to hide an awful lot from us. And you got to ask the question, why? Why do they hide this stuff? Why won't they address it? Why? Because in our world, science rules. And whatever the world says, our government say, our science says, we have to accept that because that's all we're allowed to believe. They tell us what we're allowed to believe. And if you believe something outside the realm of what science tells us, whoa, there's going to be a backlash. Big backlash, right? People are going to be all over you. They're going to make fun of you. You're just crazy and stupid and all that. It goes on and on. All right. So my answer is that we're living in Satan's world, and there is a lot of deception out there. Okay? All right, so as in anything, we have to use some discernment. Okay? Ask the questions. As I shared with you in some of my very first videos, when I started this journey a few years ago, it was I didn't believe any of what I'm showing you here. I mean, that wasn't even on the table. I would have laughed people off as well. But then I got a new concept in my head. It was like, wait, we can't just throw something away. We have to prove it out, right? Just like my end time information that I share here on this channel, we have to prove it out. So if you throw everything away, have no preconceived ideas, okay, and start from scratch with no information whatsoever, what will you come up with? In the case of the end time stuff, I started out that way intending that, hey, I probably would end up right back where I started. But the furthest from the truth is what that was, okay? I never got back to what they were teaching. Why? Because it's false. And the Bible proves that out over and over again, okay? You know, if you haven't watched any other videos, go watch the rest of my videos, because what they teach for end times is just one false thing. I was online today and up popped this stuff about some things that are supposedly going to happen this year. Well, I went out and just kind of did a little search, see if anybody else was talking about it. And what I saw was at least 90% or more of it from mainstream churches that say, well, there's no such thing as rapture. There's no such thing as this or that or another thing, right? Basically, they're saying that the church, the concept of end times and the rapture and all of that kind of stuff isn't the basic tenet of the church at all. And that it's crazy. Those who are out there teaching it are false teachers and liars. Okay, that's basically what they're saying. And this is from churches. Okay, and hey, what can I say? My family, my brothers, my sisters, my mom, you know, my entire family are those people. Okay, they laugh at me. And you know, if they don't laugh at me right up front, you can tell that they're laughing at me, giggling under their breath at me, even talking about what's going to come. They don't believe, because the churches are deceived. Most of them are satanic churches. Okay, they're satanic churches. They're lost. They've never really accepted Christ as a personal savior. They don't even talk about it. Okay, I came out of it. I know this. Okay, I had to leave my church that I grew up in order to go out and find out that there's other stuff out there, and to really start searching the Bible, I found out more. Now, I know if I'm off on a tangent from where we're going to go here, but I just want to touch base and say, don't ever throw anything away. I challenge you, even if you don't believe, throw everything away. Come in from a perspective that I don't know anything about it, never heard of it, never seen it, and then start researching. Okay? Ask the hard questions. What's the proof? Okay? If the proof is what the government and in this case, the government, NASA, science, everything else is trying to show you, then you can be sure it's probably a lie. Okay? Because it's of this world. It's of Satan. You can see where they're headed in this world, right? Ask yourself, how much other stuff do you trust your government for? Okay? And then ask yourself, why would I believe this part or this or this? Why should I trust any of it? Always, always do your due diligence, your due research on your own. You can't trust that they're taking pictures and say, see, they have pictures. And this proves that according to their pictures. No, you can't. Most of these pictures that you see online and elsewhere are what they call CGI, okay? They're graphic images that they that they created, okay? Computer graphic images, CGI. They've modified pictures. They've changed them. It's a proven fact. And you can see that over time, how they've modified and changed and whatever, okay? They've been caught, and there's nothing they can do about it. Whatever the case, understand this, that never throw any thought away without going out and proving it wrong. I have run across people's ideas. I've gone out there and I've searched it out, and I've proven a lot of things wrong. On the other hand, when I come to the stuff that I'm now teaching, this is stuff that the Bible teaches, and it's an absolute, and it shows it. I start out with 1 or 2 ideas, and I have now probably a dozen or more proving out the very fact of how many parts there is to the end times, okay? That's what I talk about the most here. The differences in the gospel. Why do people walk away from their tenets of Christianity and leave Jesus and the church because they see what they call contradictions, right? And I explain all that. I explain it, right? There are reasons for it, and I go into great detail in explaining it over and over and over again and showing it in the Gospels as to why, okay? And it all has to do with end-time understanding. God wrote it all, okay? What I'm going to show you today is pretty much, at least the biblical side of it. I'm going to ask a lot of questions at the end, and you can try to refute them to your heart's content. But I'm going to say you cannot go to NASA, you cannot go to the government, you can't go to any of that stuff. You have to explain it. You have to prove it outside of their teachings, okay? You have to, because they're going to show you lies, or if they're not, then you have to prove that they're not lies, which you can't, okay? Okay, you probably are going to get a pretty good idea where I'm headed here. I just need you to understand that you have to come at this from a perspective that, hey, I'm going to go at this to try to prove it wrong, and all of a sudden you start asking the right questions and you start going out there and looking, and it's like, oh, wait, how can this be if this is the case? And how can this be if this is the case? And you start asking the questions, all of a sudden you have more good answers for the things you were trying to disprove than you do for the stuff that you've always thought was true. And then it starts getting difficult. And then you've got to start truly asking questions. Okay? That's where we should be. Always asking questions. We're searching for truth here, right? All right. So, I think I kind of covered this whole page. So the explanation will help you truly understand the world we live in, within, and how we got here. Okay? Explains a lot when the Bible tells us that this is not our home. This all started accidentally. Okay? It did. When I saw some verses in the Bible, and like most, I decided that it didn't make sense. And I applied the ask the right questions, ask the hard questions concept, okay? And search for truth. Search for the truth and perspective. And our Father delivered. It's amazing. And He gave it to us all right in Scripture. Now, at the end of all of this, I have a final page, and I'll put that up there for a few seconds for you to look at or copy, or you can stop it. You can take a screenshot, whatever you want to do. But I've got something like, altogether, I think I've got something like 50, I don't know if I put them all on here, but I've got something like 50 verses in the Bible that show what I'm about to show. Okay? And they all say the same thing over and over and over and over again. tells us one thing, tells us, some of them tell one thing, some of them tell another thing, some of them tell nothing, but they're all connected. Okay? Isaiah 22:18. These are both verses from Isaiah. Okay? And what I want you to understand is Isaiah knows the difference. Okay? He will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country. Okay, so we have the word ball. He knows what a ball looks like, a sphere. Okay? But then we have, it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. Okay, so we have Isaiah 22:18 and Isaiah 40:22. Now we have these words, circle and tent, and spreadeth them out as a tent. Okay? So this is our concept of what the earth is. Now what's interesting is, again, because of science today, the entire world believes one thing. Okay? But the men of the past, everybody up until a few hundred years ago, knew the truth. And it wasn't until science stepped in that things changed. And what's interesting, and I talk about this later, but I'm going to talk on it now. What's interesting is that every culture around the world, whether spread across one ocean or another ocean or here or there, all these cultures spread apart by thousands and thousands of miles apart, all had the same view of what it looked like, or some premise of the same concept of what the earth truly was. And they were all spread across thousands and thousands of miles away from each other. They all had the same concept of a flood, right? And a boat, and the shape of this world that we live in, okay, and what it looked like. They're not all exactly the same, but they're all built on the same premise, okay? So you can guess where this is headed. So stay with me, please, because the Bible has a lot to say on this subject. We have been taught to just accept science. Don't question it. We are shown pictures and videos and are told this is the truth. The world laughs at you as you accept anything other than what you were told. Okay? This is where we live. They want indoctrination. They want you to believe what they tell you. Do not ask the wrong questions. Okay? Our governments and NASA and the world at large program us throughout our entire lives, and we are never taught to question any of it. From the very beginning, we're shown what we're supposed to know. And learning is about research and answering questions. It is not about indoctrination. Okay? So Isaiah wrote in one place about a literal ball. He knew what a ball was, right? Something you can throw around. But he knew the difference of what a ball is, right? Later, he uses the word circle when he describes the world in which we live. Okay? Now, there is a difference. The world and the church, using science, would ignore this word and turn it into a ball again. Okay? I think God, being mathematical, knows the difference. Don't you? So ask Google the difference between a ball and a circle. Okay? And for that matter, ask any mathematician. In every case but here, they will tell you that a ball is a sphere, while a circle is a flat plane. Everywhere you search, if you ask what a circle is always a flat plane, right? A sphere is like a ball or a globe. Okay? The Bible tells us it's a circle, and I know God knows the difference. And then it tells us that the heavens are stretched out over us like a tent. Can anyone tell us what a tent looks like? Is the bottom curved or flat like a plane? Tents are also covered over like a dome. And when we live in a tent, it means we are inside something. Isn't it also interesting that one of the most important feast days on the calendar is Feast of Tabernacles? It is a feast that celebrates the Israelites coming out of Egypt. It celebrates the fact that they lived in tents during that entire period. God, just as God says we are to be brought out of Egypt, having lived inside a tent our whole lives. It is a great picture, is it not? This feast is one of 3 in which we are to appear before the Lord. We talked about these. We just finished them, right? This one by itself is pretty cool, but God makes sure that we know where we are at. Okay? He wants us to know where we're living and what He created. It's all throughout the Bible. He wanted us to know. And that's one of the basic reasons why I even did this. Because I had a friend, actually this is one of the main reasons he walked away from me, because he refused to even acknowledge the Bible showing this. We used to share a lot of information. We even shared dreams at times. Okay? And yet he walked away for this one reason, that I said that I believed this wholeheartedly. And it was too much for him. It was too much that the Bible actually taught this. And to me, and it's like, well, it doesn't even have a biblical sense to it. And I'm like, yeah, it does. Because God created this. And in my mind, if this is what God created, this is what He wants us to know that He created. Beyond that, okay, I guess we find out when it happens, right? All right, so I won't do them all, but I have over 50 Bible verses telling us all about the earth we live on, according to the Bible, strictly. So let's check out the next one. Proverbs 8:27. When He prepared the heavens, I was there. When He set a compass upon the face of the depth. When He established the clouds above. When He strengthened the fountains of the deep. When He gave to the sea His decree. All right, so here He describes a compass on the face of the depths. Okay, so describe a compass for me. Most compasses are a flat, planed circle with a glass dome over the top. Okay, some of those are flat over the top, but I've seen some domes as well. But it doesn't matter. It's a flat base with something over it. So not only are we on a flat plane circle and covered by a dome, but we are under the water. Yep. We see this very fact every time we read through Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. The deep literally means the water. Okay? Underwater. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Genesis 1:6, and God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And so it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. Okay, so according to God's word, we are under an ocean. We're under the water. And He separated that water which above from that water below and placed us inside this thing. Okay? And we're placed under a tent, a firmament. Okay? Those two words are synonymous with each other in this case. Okay? And we're going to find out what a firmament is. Okay? If you're looking at a New International Version, that's one of those. I normally would say I completely despise the New International Version. It's one of the worst Bibles out there. But all that said, in this case, I like it. Because if you read these exact same set of verses in the NIV, it tells you that it's a dome. Okay? That's basically what it tells you. The first time I heard that, my mouth just dropped. I was in a Bible study with a group of people that didn't even believe in flat earth at all. You know, they were just reading it outright, right? And they were reading it out of an NIV, and I was like, you've got to be kidding. It actually states it. But if you look it up in the Greek, that's exactly what it tells us. Or I'm sorry, Hebrew in this case. In Hebrew, it tells us outright that's what it is. Okay? It's a hard shell, essentially, above us. All right. And God called the firmament heaven. Okay? That thing that covers over the top of us, keeps the water out. And the evening and the morning were the second day. Now, think about the flood. This is going to be coming up. Okay? Think about the flood, because this is all important. So our Father told us at the very beginning, but we want to ignore this because science has taught us from day one that we are on a globe flying through space. Oh, we'll get there. We will. So what does firmament mean? Firmament means an expanse or visible arch of the sky. Notice it says arch. An extended surface. The next word, solid expanse. Firmament. Okay? Flat as base. Support. Firmament. Okay? And then it kind of continues. Vault of heaven supporting waters above. Okay? Vault of heaven supporting waters above. Considered by Hebrews as solid and supporting waters above. Okay? This is the original belief. And everybody in the entire world until science, modern science, if you want to call it that, decided to tell the world that we are on a ball. Okay? No matter where you lived in the world back in those days, everybody knew the truth. They were even worshiping other gods, but knew this. All right. So, let me say, see these words or these numbers, 7549. This is the original number that we just pulled out of there, okay, for firmament. And then 75, it says from 7554. That means that's like a base of, or it's another word that connects with it, okay? A direct connection to this word. So it says, as a sign of passion, okay? By analogy, to expand, by hammering, by implication, to overlay with thin sheets of metal, to beat, to make broad, to spread abroad, forth, over, out, into plates, stamp, stretch, spread, okay? You getting the idea? It's a hard surface that keeps the water out. If you don't know, a dome is the strongest structure. When built properly, a dome is the strongest structure there is in the world. Okay? A dome is something, I actually built 3 of them. Okay? You can put like really heavy stuff on top of them, and they might spread a little, but they rarely break from the top down. You give them their support and they will hold just about anything. Okay? So, beaten out metallic plate, it says. So, We've seen some of these words before, to stretch out, expanse, and spreading out. It shows it to be a solid metal surface, or something akin to metal. Isn't God's word incredible? When we search out the meaning and wanting to truly know the truth, God's word delivers. Even Jesus got into the act in the New Testament parable. We just have to see the picture for what it is. So if you look at the beginning of Genesis, and then you go into Jesus' parables, guess what? We're going to see it again. I ran into this after I started studying, and I saw this, and I was like, oh my goodness, there it is. Jesus telling us where we are living, right? A certain man planted a vineyard and set a hedge about it. And he digged a place for the wine fat and built a tower. Isn't that what God said he did? He built a tower so he could see down into, what's going on, okay? And let it out to a husbandman. In this case, probably Satan in this case, okay? And went into a far country, okay? So he left, and now he's going to come back. So this is the same picture. Right? He put a hedge around. He dug it out and put a hedge around it, right? That dome over the top. All right? So we have a flat surface on the bottom, dug out, flat, made it all nice and flat, and then put a dome, over it. Right? So this is Jesus' story, and he built a hedge or a wall or an area and dug a hole for a vineyard, a place of harvest. That harvest is us. Okay? That's what this whole story is about. Somebody who was supposed to be watching over us, and they were supposed to be able to come back and harvest as people are ready, but the husbandman refused to give up the harvest, right? Yeah. That's our story. Jesus told us the entire story of what happened and where we're going to be, okay? And he built a tower over the top to watch over it all. He is describing where we are living. So, here it is again. An enclosing barrier. This is that hedge, right? Is that a hedge? Roundabout. A hedge. Enclosing barrier. You get that? It's a fence or an enclosing barrier. Around hedge, round, or hedge roundabout. Roundabout, right? All the way around. A fence that which separates or prevents two from coming together. Now this is where things get interesting for me, because I have a belief that God is up above us. Okay? We are under the water. He built us, kind of like what happened here recently in the last couple of years, where people were told to stay in their houses to prevent everybody coming together. So what happened? Adam and Eve sinned. Sin came into the world, whether through the angels or through the fallen angels or through man. Okay, whichever the case, it doesn't matter. And he had to separate. He had to separate us from Eden, right? The earth, the real earth, the Eden. We're still on the earth, but the earth is actually outside of here. We're under the water, setting on the bottom of an ocean on the earth, okay? And we're underneath here. We're being kept away because of sin. Sin is like a pandemic, really. It's like a pandemic. It's a what am I trying to say here? A sickness, right? And because of the sin, he didn't want us to infect all of his lands, right? His perfected lands. And he didn't want us to infect all of that. So he put us down inside here to keep us here until the plan was complete. That plan is almost complete. Okay? So we can't come together. He prevents two people from coming together. That's because we're here and he's out there. And he's eventually going to be bringing us out soon. Okay? That's what Jesus was all about. All right. 54:20. A fence or enclose, to block up, to stop, to fence in, to block up, to stop up, to close up, to silence. Okay? And then we have to dig, to burrow in the ground. Okay? Kind of put all this together, and what do you have? You have something under the water with a firmament over it, covering and holding out the water. This is what the Bible's telling us. There's no question about this. All right. And a vessel, a receptacle under the press, the lower vat, the wine vat. Okay, a vessel placed under a press, and in the Orient usually sunk in the earth. Did you get that? The wine press, usually sunk in the earth to receive the express juice of the grapes, a pit. It's a pit. Okay? I mean, this just all continues to just fit together like a glove. The express juice, that's basically the harvest. Okay? The wine. And a tower or castle, a tower, a fortified structure used rising to a considerable height to repel a hostile attack or to enable a watchman to see in every direction. Oh, that's beautiful. God's up there watching over everything, right? And he has to repel this attack, right? We have Satan, this part of this world, and we know that Satan is going to try to attack in heaven, and when that happens, there's going to be a war in heaven and a war here on earth as well, right? And so this structure is called a tower, a fortified structure. Guess what we're inside of? A fortified structure. And you know what? Our governments have been trying to break through that structure up there for a long, long time. Think about the Tower of Babel, right? Why would they think that they could build a tower so extremely tall, even in their day, that they thought that they could reach up and get to heaven? Why? Because they knew that God was up there and they wanted to take over. That's what it says. That's what they wanted. All right. That's a lot of stuff. This was Jesus' story and of how this earth was created and why. He goes on to explain what happened when he left it to those that were to watch over it. And they killed or maimed all the prophets and also killed the only Son as well. He tells us outright where we are. He tells us that at the end by letting us know that those who did this will suffer and die in the end as well. But why are we inside this thing? Well, we talked about that, right? In the beginning, Adam and Eve, they were deceived by Satan and they all sinned against God. Because of this act, all things were cursed. He had to remove them from the Garden of Eden. Eden is just outside of us here, okay? Just outside of this. Above and outside. The ground we sit on is under the ocean. We're sitting on Eden, but it's under the ocean. Under the waters, under the seas. Must be a really incredibly deep sea. Wow. All right. So they had to be removed from the Garden of Eden, and they were no longer perfect and sinless. It would have affected everything. Sin is like a sickness. If left unchecked, it turns into a pandemic and affects all of God's creation. So God created this enclosure that we may not pollute his whole of creation. We needed to be separated. Does any of this sound familiar? Yeah, we talked about this. Satan loves to mimic God. We have been and will continue to see the same thing happen during this time we are in. And God put us here until a specific time when he would return to harvest his grapes. Luke 1:17, and he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elias, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. To make ready, to prepare, provide, make ready. To make the necessary preparations, get everything ready. Metaphor drawn from the Oriental custom of sending on before kings on their journey persons to level the roads and make them passable, to prepare the minds of men to give the Messiah a fit reception and secure his blessings. Okay? To make ready. All right, then it goes on. Again, always notice that there's a from. Not everyone has a from associated with it. Sometimes they say from, akin, a base. Okay, but these are numbers sometimes that will give you a broader understanding of what we're dealing with here. Okay, to prepare thoroughly by external equipment. Okay, for is rather to internal fitness by implication, to construct or create, to build, to make or ordain. To equip, prepare, make ready of one who makes anything ready for a person or thing of builders. To construct, to erect, with the included idea of adorning and equipping with all things necessary. Of uncertain affinity. Okay? We kind of continue here. If you look up here at the very top, it says 4632, derivative of 4632. What does that say? A vessel, an implement, equipment, or literally or figuratively, especially a wife, as contributing to the usefulness of the husband. Goods, sale, stuff, and vessel. Especially a wife, as contributing to the usefulness of the husband. Where did we start from here? To make ready a people. To make ready a people. Who's that? Especially a wife is contributing to the usefulness of the husband. Now, I have spoken of Feast of Tabernacles before. And as you dig down into the meaning of the Hebrew version of tabernacles, you know what you run into? This very number, 4632, literally or figuratively, especially a wife is contributing to the usefulness of the husband. Tabernacles, that's where we end up at. Okay? So, I believe we've been through 3 times now. We've been through the first, we've been through the second time, and now we're in our third. Okay? And we have 3 different feasts with 3 different first fruits going on. Okay? And that's one of the reasons why I'm so connected to Feast of Tabernacles. Words like this, or understandings like this. By digging into these words, by digging down deep into them, you start seeing this kind of stuff going on. Okay? And then you start getting the perspective of where these are leading. Like I said, this very word that we just saw here for this very verse in Luke 1:17, he's to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. And we end up here. A wife is contributing to the usefulness of the husband. And it took time, didn't it? We all have our problems, our issues. We've all got our sin, right? And it takes time for those who are under that sin. Sometimes people fight back. Job 38:6. Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? Cornerstone? Foundations? Fastened? What? We have foundations that are fastened? And a cornerstone. Well, a cornerstone is only used in a dome type setting. Whoa. Okay. Foundation. Can you look at that very first word? Zero. Hebrews 01:34. Okay? It's in red. Where is that? The foundation is where? Eden. Do you see that? The foundation here is Eden. We sit on the foundation of Eden. All right? Same as 113, in the sense of strength, a basis, columns, foundations. Okay? A pedestal, a base, a socket. Pedestals of gold on which marble pillars were set, pedestals of the earth, foundations of the earth and pedestals, bases or sockets on which tabernacles stood. It just keeps getting deeper, doesn't it? Remember the name Adonai? Well, now we're going to get even deeper yet. Adon. Okay? Adon, from an unused root, meaning to rule, to sovereign, controller, human or lord, owner. Okay? Strong, lord, master, reference to men, superintendent or household of affairs. Master, king, reference to God, the Lord God, Lord of the whole earth. Okay? Now, we're going to go even deeper yet. Fastened. You see that word fastened? Down at the very bottom. What does that mean? H2883. To drown, to fasten, to settle or sink. Where do you sink to? Under the water, right? To fasten or settle or sink. To sink and to sink down, pierce, settle down, to drown, to be settled, to be planted, to sink down, to be sunk, to cause to sink, to be fastened. That's where the earth sets. This is what God was saying to Job. Whereof are the foundations thereof fastened? The foundations are Eden. And we're fastened to the bottom. We are sunk under the water to sink down. Cornerstones are only used in usually a dome type setting or an arch, right? Like I said, the further you dig here, the deeper we get. All right, so need we say more? This one talks about where the foundations of the earth are fastened. I mean, it's just incredible. The word foundations literally is the word Eden, and we are fastened to Eden. That's our foundation. The word fastened literally means to be sunk down under the water, just as we already read in Genesis 1 and elsewhere. Okay? What does Eden mean? It is one of the names given to God the Father. There is so much there, and I am only skimming the surface. And I think I'll do more, since it is something fantastic I found as I was writing this. It just keeps connecting up. Okay? So this little piece speaks to the storyline I gave as an explanation earlier. It literally speaks to the separation of good and evil. This is the first 4 verses of Genesis, and everyone has always read this as a literal giving of light and of darkness. So, like through the sun and the moon. That's what people assume. But, excuse me, the sun and the moon weren't created for a few more days. Okay? So, this, I believe, is a literal meaning of light and spiritual light and darkness. Okay? It is telling us that he was creating this place to separate those in spiritual light from those who were in darkness. They needed to be quarantined from each other. And now, read these verses with that perspective in mind. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Okay? Down in the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. So I know what it says, but sometimes he combines things, while at other times prophetical meanings have at least two meanings. Okay? Did you also notice that he called the light good, but the darkness he did not call good? And maybe we are speaking to Jesus being light versus Satan being darkness. In Luke, there's a reference to Jesus using this very concept for those who were in him and those who were not. Let's take a look at the word darkness. The dark, hence darkness, misery, destruction, death, ignorance, sorrow, wickedness, night, obscurity, darkness, obscurity, darkness, secret place. I mean, do you see it? Almost everything there. There is other references. There is one reference to something slightly different, but you know what? Almost all of this is the same. It's talking about ignorance and sorrow and wickedness. This isn't the light of the sun or the moon, okay, to brighten things up. This is darkness as far as obscurity and ignorance and sorrow and wickedness, right? So who is the light here? The light of the body is the eye. Therefore, when thine eye is single, thy whole body also is full of light. But when thine eye is evil, thy body also is full of darkness. Take heed, therefore, that the light which is in thee be not darkness. If thy whole body, therefore, be full of light, having no part dark, the whole shall be full of light, as when the bright shining of a candle doth give thee light. Luke 11:34-36. We're not talking about, light again, like sun or the moon or whatever coming in. We're talking about here the concept of good, okay? Doing the right thing or being the right thing, or in this case, Christ, okay? So John has another connection, okay? It's a perfect connection in Genesis 1, light and darkness. So this is the beginning. This is John 1, okay? John is describing Jesus here. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light. Okay, John's not the light. Jesus is the light. Okay? That all men through him might believe. He was not that light, see? But was sent to bear witness of that light, Jesus. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. So he's giving his light that comes into the world, and we take his light. Are you seeing this? He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. Okay? So he created this world, separated. So he was created before the world was created. That's what it tells us. All the way back in Genesis, God created the light and dark. This explains it right there in John 1. It goes against everything we've been taught. But it's right there. Okay? So again, what I'm seeing in Scripture is that we are inside a tented or dome structure under a great sea or water. We are attached to Eden. We were placed here because of the great sin at the beginning. He sent us out of Eden and blocked us from getting back. But he has had a plan that will bring back all those who are or want to be his. Okay? He is preparing some to be taken out of this prison in which we have been placed. A harvest. This is a far cry from what the world shows or teaches us. Most, even within the church, continue to believe the world and its science. They mock anyone who would dare to believe in God's word and all that it teaches. Deception. Great deception. One of the greatest deceptions that there is. So there are more than 50 verses in the Bible that teach this stuff in one form or another. It talks, we've seen it. It talks about being stationary. Okay? It talks about the water. You saw about the waters going under, right? We've talked about the waters being above. If you continue to read in Genesis, you will see that the sun and the moon are actually within. They're not this giant ball. They're not these giant balls that are billions of miles away and 200 and something thousand miles away, and whatever. It's not anything like they tell us. I actually have pictures of clouds coming behind the moon. We were driving home one night and we looked up and it's like, what? And so we took a video of clouds showing up behind the moon. Have you ever noticed that sometimes on certain days you can actually see through the moon? It's weird. All right, getting off of that. Okay, so others speak to it being, so many speak of the firmament. Others speak to the columns, right? We saw both of those. And so many others speak to it being stationary. If you go back to Genesis, you will find that it says the sun and the moon are inside the firmament. They would have to be if we are truly inside a tent, under the water. It speaks to the earth being stationary, and the sun and the moon are moving in the sky. It is not hard to figure out how that works. What they tell us and what really happens are kind of the same, but they twist the truth. And that's how they make it happen. They twist it. They even use some of the same numbers that are true within our dome, but they twist the truth. Okay? And use it. All right. All of this can be found in the pages of our Bible. I guess God wanted us to know that what He created. It all fits into the story of the beginning and the end of times, which I believe the Father has shared with me. So I will place a list of the verses I have so far. I'm sure one could find more, and I have probably more of this list, which leads us outside the Bible to ask some questions to get one thinking. Okay? Now I know this is getting long, and I ask you to bear with me, but these are actual questions that you can stop and ask yourself. Do the research. Do it for yourself. Don't ask somebody else. Don't go online and say, hey, is this true? Is this true? Go do it yourself, because you can't trust that you're going to get a proper answer. The world is deceived. All right, so I'm going to start with simple facts that we have been told by our government and our scientists. Okay? So question. Rainbows reflect light according to the shape of the object from which the light is being reflected or refracted from. Fact. Okay? That is fact according to science. True science. I don't have a problem with that. So why is it in the shape of the rainbow, okay, a dome, we see in our sky is a half circle? Like a dome? It takes the shape of the container it is within. How do we get a rainbow if it takes the shape that it's inside of? Think about that. That's just the beginning. If you were to look at a globe, did you realize that the entire globe which you find in classrooms are completely wrong? For that matter, you can take a flat map, which they've done the same thing to, okay? They've just taken the globe and kind of opened it up and said, okay, this is the same thing, right? It doesn't matter how you do it. So, everything in the northern hemisphere is actually larger than it should be. I've got proof. While everything in the southern part is smaller. Okay, all modern maps show this. I'm going to show you my screen here in a minute, once I get through a few of these. Okay, and I'm going to show you what it technically kind of should look like. It's probably not perfect, but it's pretty close to what it should look like. In fact, it is a map of the world back in the 1600 time frame. Okay? They knew. And this was the original maps. Not the maps we see today. These are the original maps that they used to sail by. Okay? All right. So, take for instance Australia and Greenland. So Australia is almost 4 times bigger than Greenland. But on the global maps, okay, on the global maps, Greenland shows significantly larger than Australia. They're absolutely reversed on our maps. Look up the square miles of both of them, and you will find out how big one is compared to the other. Okay? And then go look on your globe or your flat maps of today, okay, that they create for you. They've gotten good at this. And just envision something really tiny down here that's supposed to be 4 times larger than the one that's up here by North America. And ask yourself, what's wrong with this picture? All right. When they stretch it into a globe, right? When they stretch it into a globe, everything on the bottom gets smaller, and everything on top blows up like a balloon. Okay? All right, another instance. Go take a look at North America, okay? All of North America is above the equator, okay? So I went and looked this up even just recently, okay? Just thought about this. North America, again, looks bigger than South America on the global maps. Now, they might look about the same size, but North America actually does look slightly larger than South America. Slightly. Even if South America looks slightly bigger to you, that's great. They both look about the same size, do they not? But there's a problem. According to their own figures, North America is less than 9.5 million square miles in total, and that includes Greenland. Okay? South America is just shy of 18 million square miles. What that means is that on a map, whether it be a circular map or a flat map or any map, North America should be half the size of South America. Half the size. There should be a significant difference with the size of the continents and stuff. You should be able to see South America's much, much huger than what North America actually is. Okay? But that's not the case. Why? It's like they're trying to hide something. You can also do this with the Atlantic and Pacific. Find out how big the Atlantic and the Pacific are. And then you got to ask yourself, why do they both look about the same size? If the Pacific is the same size as the other, why do they both look about the same size? Interesting, huh? So, yeah, before we go there, I'm going to shut my screen down. Give me a second, see if I can pull this off. All right. In the background here, best I can do, this is kind of what it should look like, or an approximation of what it should look like. This is a very, very old map. And I'm going to assume this is kind of a flat Earth map. Okay? Now I know people are going to say, hey, you know, if you go and you follow your compass, it's going to take you, you know, to somewhere else, right? The problem with compasses is they're based on magnetism. And the Earth does have magnetism. And so if you just follow the compass, you're going to end up going wrong way. What you have to do is start ignoring the compass. If you could keep flying on and on and on, you are going to, no matter which way you go, run into Antarctica, which is an ice shelf that goes around the entire Earth on a flat Earth. Okay? There's an ice shelf all the way around. If you try to fly into that, you will be shot down. You will. They won't let you anywhere near it, because the governments back before World War II, I think, somewhere around in there, right? Byrd went down there, and then all of a sudden they had these treaties, and nobody was allowed to go there anymore. Not to any real understanding. And those that do, they actually have to sign a waiver, an agreement stating that they will not talk about anything that they see. Okay? Anything that they find, for the most part. Okay? So, all right. So, do you see what I'm saying, though? Everything isn't as it should be. If you look, let me bring up the pencil here. All right. This is Australia. Okay? This up here approximately is Greenland. Okay? This is more like it, right? This is more like it. Australia is 4 times larger than Greenland. This is the way approximately that it should be. But if you look at your map, it's the other way around. Crazy. You'll always wonder why you have to fly over, like up and over the north to get to where you're going, because that's where everything is at. For the United States, to get to Europe and all that over there, you have to fly across the north to get there. It all fits. And look at the Pacific. Look how big it really is. This is true to size compared to the smallness of the Atlantic Ocean over here. Okay? We've got something that's true to size according to the size of the Pacific compared to the size of the Atlantic. Very, very interesting. All right. Let me see if I can pull everything back up here. All right. So, up until a few hundred years ago, everyone knew that the world was flat. I talked about that earlier. There are old world maps showing this fact. And those same old world maps showed the continents in their correct size we just looked at. And I showed you a picture, okay? All right, when science came into its own and people were told that these people are smarter, everything changed, right? We just accept what science tells us. It wasn't always like that at the very beginning. It took some time before people accepted these things as truths, okay? And few people had to disappear in order for that to happen. But what's interesting is once they start teaching it in schools, even though the parents maybe have learned something different, but they start teaching stuff in schools, then the children start believing and understanding it that way. And so you have a whole new understanding and teaching going on because the schools are teaching what they want our children to know. It's called indoctrination, okay? And so they can change history, they can change ideas, they can change thoughts. It's the same thing with evolution versus creationism, right? You start teaching it, the children start believing it because that's what they're being taught in school, and that becomes what everyone begins to believe because that is what they are taught, okay? Doesn't matter what you teach in church or anywhere else, unless you're really fighting back on this and showing them the truth, right? They just will believe whatever they're told, okay? This is how it works. Over time, Satan has had a lot of time to change and twist and manipulate things to fit his agenda, okay? All right, every past culture has a beginning. Noah's like story, okay? And a flat earth perspective with similar pictures and models of what they knew it to be. Isn't it interesting that all of them had similar information even when they were a world apart, okay? And yes, there were people living in North America at the time. Yes. How do you think those people got there? So they came across land bridges, they crossed over. In fact, there's proof now that part of the Jewish nations, part of the Israeli nations that went off into the world actually was connected to some of the tribes that were here in America when the Europeans as a whole came to America. There were tribes that were worshiping a god called Yahweh. Interesting, right? So all of these cultures literally around the world, whether here in North America or everywhere else in the world, all had a basic concept of this flat earth with a dome type thing over the top and someone or something holding it up. Okay? So isn't it also interesting that all of that changed with the advent of modern science? The scientists from the church at the time, okay? I don't like to blame everything on Catholics, but basically they were all educated from all science and everything coming out of the Dark Ages and everything. Maybe that was planned that way, but all scientists in the coming out of the Dark Ages and so on were Catholic bred, okay? They all came out of that. And so this is where most of these teachings came from. So I'm not saying all science is bad, okay? I said that earlier, right? I accept the fact that the rainbow takes the shape of whatever container it's in, right? But they want to hide the fact that we're inside what we're inside, okay? All right, so have you considered the impossibility of a globe? Seriously, have you thought about the impossibility of it? Is our global Earth magical or what? No, I'm serious. It's got to be magical, right? So let's look at some numbers according to science, okay? We want to stop and we have to think about this. If this is the global Earth, we have to ask the questions that go with it, right? If we were to do the same thing on the Earth with what they call gravity, etc., and we know that, say, water takes the shape of its object and it always remains flat and whatever, right? All right. This is a globe, okay? It's a sphere. And it rotates at a rate of 1,038 miles per hour at the equator, according to them. Okay? And the Earth rotates around the sun at 66,600 miles per hour. Wow. That's pretty fast. And the sun moves through the galaxy at a 448,000 miles per hour. Okay? Keep those numbers in mind. Let's get some perspective. So I ask you to place some water or pour it on a spinning globe. What happens? Spins off, right? Well, spin it faster, because they say, you gotta spin it faster. Okay, spin it faster. It just spins off faster, right? Well, there's gravity here on this Earth, so it gotta work, right? No. Well, you gotta have a bigger globe. Okay? You have a bigger ball. Okay, so let's get a big ball. Okay? Let's get one that's, I don't know, 500 feet around. Let's spin it at 1,000 miles per hour. That'll be quite the sight, wouldn't it? All right. Do you think the water's going to stay flat against the surface of this ball as it's spinning around? Of course not. Okay? But they're going to say, well, that's because gravity on the Earth. Well, gravity on the Earth, of course. But wait. We got water sitting on the surface of the Earth. Don't we? And it's not spinning off. I don't care how big it is. It's spinning at 1,038. What was that? 1,038 miles per hour at the equator. Wow. And it's moving through space at thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of miles per hour. And it's got to even be moving faster than that to keep up with the sun, who's moving at, 448,000 miles per hour. Do you feel it? Are we even affected by that? How's that even possible? How about an aircraft trying to take off and land? All right. Well, they say, well, it's going to be the air movement and whatever, right? We're because of gravity or air movement, the airplanes aren't affected by that because they already have the speed. They're already at the same speed as the Earth is. Well, first of all, the air would be moving at the same speed. Okay? Think about that, the speed at which the air would have to be moving inside an object like that. I think that's another one I talk about later. Think about that. You have an object moving at 1,038 miles per hour, and all the air underneath it isn't moving at that speed. I dare you to put a globe, a hollow globe, and put water inside and spin that globe and just let it spin there for even a few minutes, let alone thousands and thousands of years. Okay? Do you suppose the water inside will be spinning at the same speed as that thing is spinning? Oh, absolutely. Air would be doing the same thing. You see a tornado. They prove that out in some science museums. You see, they put some dust in there and they start spinning something in there and you get air swirling like a tornado. You get it? It doesn't make sense, does it? But if you take an airplane and you try to take off, that airplane's no longer affected by the ground. It's now in the air. So now it's all on its own. So if the Earth is moving at 1,038 miles per hour and the airplane's only moving at somewhere between 100 and maybe 500 miles per hour, that means everything underneath you is spinning at tremendous speeds faster than what you're moving. That means as soon as you take off, everything underneath you is gone and there's nothing more for you to land on. In fact, have you ever tried landing on something moving at 1,038 miles per hour? Ask yourself how much sense this makes. People don't think about these kind of things. But ask yourself the questions. The proof. All right. So if you're trying to get from one location to another, if you were to take off, all things being equal, the wind is moving in the same direction to the same point, and you got headwinds or tailwinds of the same miles per hour for both aircraft taking off, going to the same exact number of miles. Should they both be getting there at the same time? Not if the Earth is rotating at 1,038 miles per hour. One, you should be able to take off and just immediately land on your next runway, probably at 1,038 miles per hour. Okay? Especially if you're just traveling here in the country. By the time you take off, you're going to be landing again. Wait until you understand the concept of a globe of even taking off. That's going to be a killer. So anyway, yeah. So the other one going the opposite direction is never going to get there because the Earth underneath it is spinning by it too fast for it to ever get to its destination. It doesn't work. Then you talk about satellites, or they tell us that they went to the moon. Well, we know that's a lie. That's an absolute lie, because we've proved that to be true, that's wrong. I'm not going to go into that here. I can give you all kinds of reasons why it's false, okay? But it never happened. They've never truly been to the moon, okay? So, if they were going to go off into space, and the Earth is rotating at 1,038 miles per hour, and it's going through space at, let's get back here, 66,600 miles per hour. It's rotating around the sun, and the sun is moving at 448,000 miles, which puts us at 514, right around there, close enough, 514,000, give or take, square mile or miles per hour. Okay, and then, think about that now. The sun is, the Earth has to go around the sun, right? And when it gets around this sun, right, on the other side, it has to come back around the other way. That means it has to slow down, right? Otherwise, it's going to just fly off into nowhere. And then it's got to make that turn back around, and it's got to speed up again to get past the sun so the sun doesn't come and hit it. And then it's got to slow down again on the other side. Seriously, it has to do this. This is not making much sense, does it? This is why I said you have to actually listen to this. You have to start thinking for yourself, not what they're telling you. And I'm sure they could come up with all kinds of mumbo jumbo. Oh, I'm not done yet. Okay? Yeah. Try to get that rocket back to the Earth. Okay, 262,000 miles away. You gotta catch that moon. Okay? You gotta catch that moon that's 260 some thousand miles away in space. And then you gotta get back again. At those kind of speeds, 514,000 miles per hour, that the Earth and the sun, we can't travel that fast, folks. We can't. It doesn't exist. Even in a rocket, it doesn't exist. Have you ever noticed when they send rockets up that they never go into space? It never happens. Always notice when they fly up, they always take a turn. And they always turn off into the ocean. Nobody's ever actually watched a rocket go into space. Because it doesn't. It always turns off. And sometimes you can actually see these white cloud things where the rocket is hitting against the firmament. Okay? Just watch. Watch some of their videos. You'll see it. All right, moving on. If the sun and Earth are traveling that fast through the universe, that means the Earth has to actually be traveling over 500,000 miles per hour. We touched on that, right? On the other side, the Earth would have to go slower to maintain its proper distance. So, we hit that one. What about the stars? So they tell us the Earth is millions and billions of years old, right? And even over the thousands of years, or 10,000s of years maybe, call it what you like, over all that time, why are the constellations still the same now as they were then? The Bible talks about these constellations. We know that they existed then. We know that they exist now. The Bible tells us that they're unchanging. They don't change. So we got all this random stuff being out there in space, all these stars and a whole several different galaxies, well, unnamed number of galaxies, they tell us now. And these days they show us all these planets that they can't see, but they can draw pictures of. Okay? They can't see them. They literally cannot see them, but they can draw pictures for us. CGI. Interesting, right? So we're traversing through a random universe, supposedly, at 500,000 miles per hour, with other galaxies out there moving along, and all these galaxies are what? Remaining in exactly a perfect stance, a perfect shape throughout thousands and thousands and thousands of years with no change to them. Year after year, we can look up at the sky, and that's what God told us to do at the very beginning. Use the sun, moon, and stars. That was what we were meant to use. That's our calendar. Okay? That is our calendar. Is that not a problem, folks? Those things should be way out of whack. We shouldn't be able to see everything in its place after this period of time. And yet, there it is, still in place after thousands and thousands of years. And yet they give us this story about millions and billions of years, and, tens and billions of galaxies, and, moving through space and moving through space, so fast, etc., etc., etc. Yeah. How does that happen? Have you ever thought about Noah's flood? Noah's flood. What does it say? It says he opened the windows of heaven, and also there's holes that opened up in the earth. Wow. So we have water coming up from underneath, and rain coming down from above, but that rain wasn't just rain. He says he opened the windows of heaven, and it came down and it flooded. It flooded the whole earth in 40 days. All right, but this gets better. Remember, we talked at the very beginning about putting water on a rotating earth? But think about this way. They tell us we got gravity. Okay, fine, we got gravity. So with gravity, where's that water going to go on a globe? It's got to go down. Now, on this magical sphere that we live on, obviously that doesn't happen, does it? We live on a magical sphere where everything just stays right where it's supposed to be, moving at 1,038 miles an hour in a circle, and going so fast through space, and we never feel it, we never see it, the water sets perfectly, right? Is that a problem? However, if it's a flat earth and we're inside a dome and you pour water down inside, now we have an enclosed area. We can flood it up to however high we need it, right? We can stop the water at that point. And what's the water going to do? It's going to remain flat, right the way it should be. Interesting, right? Bet you didn't think about that. But seriously, these are the questions you gotta think and start asking. Now, most people are still gonna call you batty, stupid, crazy, but that's fine. It's not a big problem. Okay? All right. Yeah. So, it takes on the shape of the container, right? It's just the way it works, and it remains flat. That's how water works. Except on this wonderfully magical sphere that we live on. Yeah. So another interesting one is the moon. We're told that it is 238,900 miles from the Earth, and yet it seems to be able to affect our tides. Well, here's an interesting piece. The object is supposedly 1/4 the size of the Earth and 238,900 miles away. And the moon never spins and always shows the same side to us regardless of time and location on the Earth. There's no spin. Okay? It just always shows us the same side. So we're told that by itself there is very little gravity on the moon. Well, that's interesting. So here's the problem. Somehow, this little object seems to be able to affect the gravity of our planet. That's right. We have a planet that has supposedly gravity and much more gravity, right, than the moon. And the moon has very little gravity, and it never spins. And it seems to be able to affect the gravity on the Earth in reverse, which has a significantly greater amount of gravity. Wait, what? So, in fact, we're told the Earth holds the moon in check by its very gravity. So, which one is true? No, seriously, which one is true? We're told that from 239,000 miles away, its gravity trumps that of Earth. Okay? Think about that. They tell us it has very little gravity, doesn't spin, blah, blah, blah. The Earth has a greater amount of gravity. It's what holds the moon in check, supposedly, and keeps it flying along with us, etc., etc. And then they tell us that it's affecting our gravity and affecting our oceans and water here on Earth. How can it do that? Now, if that were true, all the water would keep flowing toward the moon and not stop. How could it? It's got the greater gravity. So it'd be pulling the water towards it the whole time, and then, or at least pushing it until the moon disappears or something. Yeah. Think about that. How about one more? This is a really good one. This one has been proven out. Using the government and NASA's numbers, a simple trig problem for those who can do trig, it's not too hard, can destroy all of this. Okay? Using their own numbers. Okay? Now, we have to think about this as far as science is concerned. So let me explain as we go. So we're going to square the distance by using the radius. We find out that when you go 1 mile on their Earth model, okay, we're talking about the radius of the entire Earth according to what they tell us, this marble we live on, right? After the first mile, okay, we're talking about a totally flat surface now. If you go 1 mile, you're going to lose because of the curvature of the Earth. Remember, we have a curvature of the Earth that we have to deal with. Okay? They show us pictures that tell us that the Earth is basically a marble. It's a perfectly round marble ball. That's what they have shown us in the past. They can't change it now because they showed us, they drew it in a perfect circle when they first created it. And over the years, they've kept showing us as a perfectly round ball, not flattened on any ends or whatever. You know, people try to say that. My son tries to talk about, my oldest son tries to talk about it. You know, he's 30-some years old. He loves science, right? And he talks about that all the time. And so he tries using that as an excuse. But I'm like, well, wait a minute. If that's true, then you too do not believe in NASA, because NASA shows it as a perfect, round marble in space. That's the pictures they show us. Okay? So if that's the case, we have a perfect curvature of the Earth that we can follow. Okay? Now, that being said, if you go out 1 mile, you should lose the bottom 8 inches of any given object. You should not be able to see the bottom 8 inches any longer. Ask yourself if that's true. It's not. It just gets better from here. Okay? After the 2nd mile, we will have lost the bottom 32 inches of any object that goes out. 32 inches have to disappear in 2 miles on a flat surface. Okay? Because it's not flat, obviously. You know, it's curved. That's the way the Earth is curved. All right. By the 3rd mile, we'll have lost 6 feet of that object. Okay? So you go out 3 miles down the road, or go out to the ocean. That's even better yet. The oceans are flat. Okay? Well, they are, but that's not what they tell us, right? They tell us it's all curved. You ever seen curved water in anything? Really? Okay. 6 feet of the object. It continues to grow from there. Okay? It just keeps going up. The further out you go, the further or the more you lose. Okay? So by the time you hit 50 miles, you shouldn't be able to even see Chicago from across in Indiana, across the Lake Michigan, right? Shouldn't be able to see it. But yet on a clear day, people can. And they try to tell you, well, that's a mirage, or that's a kind of like a mirror image off the lake or something. And so it creates a mirage or something. They come up with anything they can to counter the truth. So there have been guys who have gone out there and taken a constant video of the whole trip, all the way across with a video camera, showing that the same picture. They can see the city all the way across, 200 and some feet in the air. Shouldn't be. Or better yet, how about these big, gigantic ships that go out to sea? Now, over time, over so many miles, those ships, because of the way your eyes are created, okay, they look like they're going over a horizon. They look like that's what they're using against you, okay? Or after so much distance, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and eventually it looks like it's going over the horizon, right? And it disappears on you because you can't see that far. However, if you were to get a really good telescope or one of those telescopic cameras with a nice big lenses, like a P900 or something like that, you can go out there and you can take and look out into the ocean 20 or 30 miles, and you could still see the ship sitting on the water just like it was right in front of you. That shouldn't happen. By that time, that ship should almost disappear, right? And yet there it is, sitting on top of the water, and you can see it. These are facts. These aren't fiction. These aren't made-up things, okay? These are facts. Now, if you go up in an airplane, you have to be careful these days, because a few years back, several years back now, they changed all the windows in airplanes and spaceships and whatever else. And so what we run up against a lot is this. For safety reasons, they decided that all windows in aircraft need to be bowed. Okay? And because you have a bowed window, when you look out the window, everything looks somewhat curved. So when you're in the air, you have a slight curvature in the air. When people send up rockets and send up stuff and take pictures up to a certain distance, it looks like there's a curve there, doesn't it? But did you know there's such a thing as GoPro cameras, which use what's called fisheye cameras? Now, there have been people who have taken these fisheye cameras and they've gone up and they show you that it's curved, but then they come back down and they sit on the ground. The ground is still curved. You're sitting on a flat ground, or what should be flat underneath you, and it's still curved. And then you have those that have sent up rockets and forgot to change over their cameras to use the fisheye cameras, okay? And they actually showed a flat, straight across Earth. So there's lots of proof. It's just that they try to hide it as much as they can. Okay? I mean, these are all facts. And you can take them or leave them. You can believe the science of this world, or you can believe what the Bible just showed us. All right, we talked about this. We can take a ship. We can take an airplane. Okay, here it is. I talked about this earlier. I would ask you to take a ball. Take a perfectly round, maybe one of those big, 2-foot size balls, or, even a foot size, whatever. Okay? Something big enough that you get the perspective. But you can do it on a little tiny ball too. And put a little character on there. Okay? Put a little plane on there. Now, I want you to fly upwards off that ball. I'm serious. The problem with a ball is from every point on a ball, you have to go down in order to get to the next point. If you continue to fly straight and level on a ball, you will continue to gain altitude further and further out away from the ball. You will never remain on the ball. You will continue to fly out away from the ball. Try it. It's a fact. From any point on a ball. So when they get in the air, and I guarantee you this is not a fact. I have flown in the past. Okay? I was in the Air Force. I managed flight planning for all the aircraft on one of the most active airfields in the country. Okay? It was a NATO training base. We flew hundreds of sorties a day. But I personally have flown. When they teach you to flight plan, they teach you to flight plan as if you're following a flat plane. Not curvature. They never teach curvature. They just tell you plainly that you're supposed to flight plan as if you are on a flat plane. I never thought anything about that when I was in the Air Force, but that's, after I started looking into all this, that's what I figured out. I remembered that. And so you have all of this. You have an airplane trying to fly, but in order to stay with the Earth, you have to actually fly in a downward motion the entire flight. From anywhere you're at, you always have to be flying down. From any point on the Earth. Think about that. You fly up in an airplane, and an airplane moves really fast, so in 1 mile or 1 minute, it can fly very, very far, right? So once you're up in the air for, 1 minute, you better be going in a downward flight action really fast, or you're going to be flying out into space. But that's not what happens. The same applies to canals, railroad tracks, or anything else. If you were to do that, it would be cost. The cost would be huge. In fact, you couldn't do it, right? Because the further the distance, the deeper you would have to go to make a trench to be able to, make a canal or something like that. And I guarantee you, there's not a single engineer out there who creates this stuff, who draws it out and whatever. Not a single one truly will take in the curvature of the earth when they design this stuff. Not one single person. Oh yeah, they have to design to go over mountains and hills and stuff like that, but they're not taking into account the curvature of the earth. All right. One more. I know I said that before. One more. I kind of talked about this before, but I just need you to understand. If you got a globe and you got it rotating around, okay? Drive down the road. Good example. You drive down the road and you drive at 60 miles per hour and you put your arm out the window. How much force is on that arm? You've got a wind of around 60 miles an hour, right? That's just the way it is. And that's not including the wind, the real wind that's out there, right? So now you get a turning ball at 1,089 miles per hour, and everything inside that atmosphere, it's been proven. They even show it in weather stuff, right? It's been proven that if the ball is turning at 1,089 miles per hour, that anything inside it, anything inside the atmosphere for that matter, has to turn at that speed as well. Because over time it just keeps gaining speed. Okay? Till it at least equals whatever the speed of the ball is at. The wind, the water, everything has to spin at that speed. It just has to, that's just the way it works. I don't care if you have gravity or not. On this earth, take a globe, fill it with water, twist it around really fast, and see what happens. You have gravity on the earth, so it should be the same. No joke. Even if it didn't affect us on the ground, it's still going to affect us up top. But it would be almost an impossibility not to affect the entire earth, including the ground. Yeah. All right. So, we have our Bible telling us the earth is flat. We're inside a dome, right? That it's stationary. And that it sits on these poles. Yep. And we have a lot of issues with science, and it's many questions that, well, they can't answer without a lot of mumbo jumbo. Don't you love it when everything you were taught and you thought you knew is wrong? Whether it's biblical, whether it's the world and its science, it's all the same. For a long time, I thought it was crazy as well, and it wasn't easy. It's only been about 2 to 2.5 years since I actually found this. Okay? Like I said, it just came from, it's one of those things where you are challenged to say, don't just deny it, you have to prove it. And so the more you sit down and think about it, the more proof against science and the more proof you have for the biblical concept. Okay? I don't pull this out anymore. It's not worth it. It's not worth to talk to people about it mostly. When I get a chance to tell people about my site, I do try to warn them about it, that it's there. It's well worth listening to this. However, it does play nicely into the end time perspective, as well explaining where we are and how we got there. Okay? It's all in there. We just looked at it all. Well, a little while ago. I know this is getting long, and I'm almost done. But it leaves a lot of questions, doesn't it? Now, I guarantee you, if you go to your pastor and you start asking questions, they're going to deny it all. If you go to your science people, they're going to deny it all. They're going to come up with some kind of mumbo-jumbo and come up with some scientific reason why everything I said here is false. Maybe it is. And we can just throw the Bible away. Good luck. All right. I know how overwhelming this can be, but now you know. Now you have armed yourself with the concept of asking questions and searching out the truth for yourself. Okay? And once you've done that, once you've tested it out and you come up with your own answers, and they have to be correct answers. They can't just be, hey, I'm just going to go and look at the people that gave us the information and see if what they say is true. Well, obviously, whatever they say, they're going to give you the answer that you're looking for. So if you want truth, you can't just do that. You have to look at all sides objectively. Throw everything away and start from scratch, and not use the so-called proof that they show you, but look at it objectively. But again, let it go. It's not important right now, and neither is all of the rest of the crazy stuff out there. There is a lot of crazy stuff on the internet about end times, about all of this stuff. You can get all caught up in it, but what's the point? Okay? All right. For your convenience, I'm going to give you the verses that I know that show the truth about the earth. And I know that there are many more in the Bible. These are just some of them. Okay? You can go through and you can search your heart's content if you even feel like doing so. And there they are. Okay? I'll bring it back here in a second. Keep in mind that this isn't one of those gotta know things. It's just another possible piece showing the many deceptions the world has given us. Keep on studying, searching and praying in your Bible. Even if it's not this, just keep searching. We are so incredibly close. Just keep watching. It's time to awaken. It's time to get out from underneath the deceptions and find God's truth. Seriously, everyone, God bless. There again is your list. Yeah, I mean, you could sit here for a few minutes, but I'm just going to go ahead and shut it down. If you want to keep this, I would suggest just pausing this right here. Take a screenshot, whatever it is you want to do. Okay, back it up, whatever it takes. And you can go and search all these out yourself. Okay? And sometimes it's worth, getting yourself a Strong's Concordance, and, you can get it in a software version, okay, like I use. Or you can get in a book version, which I also have, where you can look this stuff up. You can actually go to all the places that use this form of the word. Okay? Remember I showed you that one word that showed us that it's talking about a wife, right? And I said, but it also connects to tabernacles as well. It's one of the base words for tabernacles. So they all can interconnect. So, get yourself some proper books or software or whatever that has Strong's Concordance, where you just click on the numbers for each of the different words and and whatever, and just start searching, because not everything you read is what it seems. It's amazing, isn't it? When you dig into the word and find the meaning behind it. God bless.